Thank you for this opportunity. All right, I'm sure a lot of folks can maybe relate to my situation.
Maybe they can relate, but you might get the idea that we don't want anybody to relate to things that don't feel good. So make that part quick.
Okay, all right. All right, so in 22...
Who cares?
I retired from a career that I had for about 35 years. And life did not go the way I planned after that. Actually, it hasn't gone really the way
It went the way you expected it, though.
Not at all.
Yes.
So
it went exactly the way you expected it. It can't ever do otherwise. This is what we've been talking about. A lot of times you don't realize what you're expecting because you're using words that are contrary to what you're vibrationally attracting. But nothing ever happens that you don't expect. Expectation is the whole basket story that we've been telling.
Okay, so you're saying, so when I retired, I guess I thought, or I had plans, but you're saying...
We should let you talk more before we interrupt, because then it would be easier for you and others to see where your expectation is. So we'll just listen to you for a little bit.
Okay, so in a nutshell, so I retired, relocated. I knew I was still going to have to work. I live very remote, very rural. So as I...
Can you hear?
No?
Just get a little closer in and a little slower.
Okay. So I relocated to a very remote area. And long story short, it was hard to find work. So I had to kind of go back to my previous career.
So I went to a place where there is nothing going on and expected something to happen.
Well,
we're just playing with you a little bit,
I know.
But this expectation thing is obvious.
I know. So the reason I moved remotely was because you keep mentioning dogs. You mentioned dogs a lot throughout this session today, and I love dogs, and I've rescued dogs my whole life. So the point of moving remote, we have land, and my dream has always been to have a big dog animal rescue. But when I retired, financially, a lot of things went sideways. So I had to get back into the career that I left, just because I really couldn't start at the same pay somewhere else or close to matching the same pay. But I had to start back. My whole career is seniority based, so I had to start back at the very bottom again. So I feel like this hamster on a wheel that can't get off. And my job...
It's hard to hear. You know, you're not different than a whole lot of others in that what you lived feels so true because you lived it, so evidence-based because you lived it, that you talk about it and then hold yourself there. But even more, we've talked about this already, even more than that, but you're making it really easy to explain it because you're doing it so easily without even realizing that you're doing it. Even more than having a tendency to talk about things like they are, you have a tendency to explain why things aren't better because of how things are. And that's what we were getting at, is that's how you keep enunciating, verbalizing, committing to, and holding yourself to an expectation that won't let you have what you want. It's giving you what you expect. Why did you retire?
22.
Why?
Oh, why? Well, I had all these other aspirations, and I was very burnt out on what I had done.
All right, so feel the split energy in that, and that's okay, and it's really quite normal. But I had aspirations, which is what your vortex is full of. And I was really burned out is what doesn't let you get there. And so what we're suggesting to you is that the burnout part of where you keep landing on the emotional scale was dominant. And so the burnout part kept being the way things kept working out. Now, you said something that isn't burnout. You love dogs, and you have land, and you could get a big dog. Now, none of that is burnout. So if you were emphasizing those things, you'd be having movement toward what you want. We're asking all of you, why do you think that you don't tend to emphasize the things that feel good? That's a big question. Everyone wants to feel good. There isn't anything that anybody wants that is for any other reason that they believe in the having of it, whether it's a pile of money or a dog or a relationship or anything, that no reason other than that they believe that they will feel good when they get it. So we're putting a question to all of you, really. Why would anyone hold themselves in a place that they clearly don't want to be, that clearly doesn't let in what they want? Why would anybody do that? Because they don't know how it works. They're not clear that this disappointment is my problem. This fear is my problem. This irritation is my problem. It's a keen indication of what my problem is. And my problem is my expectation. So how would you go about improving your expectation?
Well, the reason financially, it's finances for sure. And because I'm starting back at the very bottom of the totem pole, I don't have the time.
You see, have you ever heard the expression, there is no regression? People argue with that because I had a big house and now I live in a little house. That feels like regression. Or I had a great husband and he died. That feels like regression. But the reason that there is no regression is because everything that you live that is wonderful, you just add to it, as we were demonstrating. And everything that you live that activates the not wanted into the stick activates the wanted into the stick too. What we're saying to you is, get a hold of this. The more disappointment you feel, the more active your vortex is, and the more aware you are. In other words, you're never more aware that you said lots of good words about aspirations and things. You are never more aware of what your aspirations are than when you feel disappointed. And so, I'm going to tell you a quick story. At one seminar, this was a few years ago, two people brought the same story, different but the same story. One was a man who had lost his fortune, his business fortune, and went from a millionaire to not having two nickels to rub together, was the way he was describing himself. And he was talking like you are, starting at the very bottom. I'm this many years old and it took this long for me to accomplish this, and now here I am. And we said to him that through all that you've lived, you've been in the process of becoming, and you've created a vibrational reality that's big and prosperous and abundant and calling you. And you have these vibrational chips that you get to cash in, that you didn't live all of that and become all of that. In no possible way are you starting over. In no possible way are you starting over. Now, might you step in a place and earn a little less? So what? You are not that person that began there. You are someone entirely different. But your expectation hasn't caught up with what your inner being knows about you. And that's why it feels so bad to speak these things that you've decided are truths about yourself. It feels terrible to think this. And the reason it feels terrible because none of it is true. I'm not starting over. I'm starting anew. I'm not really starting. I'm continuing. I'm a whole different person than I was back then. The other one was a woman, artist, from the East Coast, moving to the West Coast, wanting to work in Hollywood on sets and scenery and things like that. And while she was traveling, someone broke into her car and stole her portfolio. And she said, I have nothing to show, so I have no way to let them know. And we said to her, you painted that stuff so long ago, it doesn't even represent who you now are anyway. You're going to do this, present that. Show your current talent. Show your current beingness, you see. We're just trying to massage your expectation into a different place. Because Esther thought of a phrase as she was in the act of doing it the other day. And she hadn't thought about it in years. It was sort of like 1960s conversation. Arguing for my limitations. Oh, you're arguing for your limitations. Well, that's what you're doing. You're arguing for your limitations. Arguing for them meaning promoting them. For some reason, it feels of value to argue for your limitations when nothing about arguing for your limitations will get you anywhere near where you want to be. So we want you to argue for your placement of your basket somewhere where it feels better. Because we know if we turn the microphone back over to you, you're going to loop right back around to where you were. If you don't focus and really decide that you're going to land somewhere differently and speak to us differently, we represent the lollipop. No. We represent infinite intelligence. We are as close as you're ever going to get in physical human form to infinite intelligence, or what man calls all that is, or God. In other words, this is a huge portal that you all have opened. This is big. And so since you're right here in the closest vicinity that you have ever so far been to your inner being, you want to match what your inner being knows by listening to what we are translating from your inner being to you about who you are. And the expectation you have doesn't add up. Why are you arguing for those limitations? What peanut gallery are you playing to? Why are you trying to make anyone believe that what you've been saying is who you are and therefore represents what's coming next to you? Or maybe a better question is, do you really want to do that?
I think because I am the age I am, and yes, there's always the peanut gallery back there. I don't know, because I'm just disappointed.
Well,
and my job is very stressful and tiring, and it affects me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And at the end of the day, I do get to go home after 4 or 5 days and spend a couple of days with the dogs that I do have. And then I go back, and it's so negative. I work in customer service.
So yesterday especially, we cut off several people who were sort of having the tendency that you have, because you're telling us, this is where I am in my life, pretty much sucks. And we're saying, yeah, but you can't talk about the sucky part because you just add to it. And you say, okay. And then you tell us more sucky parts. And then we say, well, we understand why you're doing it. That's just not ever going to work for you. And so you got to find something that just feels a little better. And you say, okay. And then you tell us even more sucky parts, because the law of attraction is drawing from you. So what we're going to do before we leave, or before they leave, or before you leave, is our powerful desire to witness you finding a thought about anything that isn't sucky.
Okay.
Da 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 da. The time is ticking. Oh, come on. There's fantastic things in your life.
There is. My dogs.
Who are you playing to? Play to your vortex. Play to the universe. Play to the part of you that holds the keys to everything that you want. Wake up to what's there to you. Ask for that. If you were applying for a job, would you say, hello, I'm terrible at what I do. Well, I got pretty good, but then I left, and now I'm starting at the beginning. I'm not very good at what I do, but I'd like you to take a chance on me because I don't have any money, and I don't feel good, and I've moved out in the boonies, and nobody will hire me. Is that the way you would apply for a job?
No.
Then
no.
why are you...
No, and I don't, and I...
So do you understand? And when you apply for a job, why do you? Why would anybody apply for a job? Because you believe that there's potential there for you to connect in some way where you can receive some value from this co-creation that you're wanting to do. Do you know what your vortex holds for you? And that's who you want to apply to. That's who you're submitting your resume to. Are you submitting a resume that says, I know that you're pure positive energy, but I'm in a bad mood all the time. And so would you please just throw me a bone? If I cry and whine and feel sorry for myself enough, won't you please then give me something? And your vortex would say, if it were speaking in one voice, we are not your mother. We will not hold you as our object of attention in such a way that is so denigrated and not who you are that we will take pity on you and do something that defies the laws of the universe. We will stand with your treasures and with your talent and with all that you have become, and we will know it unequivocally, and we will speak never otherwise about you. But you must find something that comes close to the expectation that your inner being has for you if you are going to draw in the power through your portal, through your channel that is there for you. You just cannot get there the way you were proceeding.